The president's remarks in Paris downplaying his son's meeting with a Russian lawyer is, quote, standard in politics, come one day after his FBI pick said authorities should be told of any request to meet with foreign individuals during a campaign.
To the members of this committee, any threat or effort to interfere with our elections from any nation state or any non-state actor is the kind of thing the FBI would want to know.
CBS News Chief White House correspondent Major Garrett is at the White House. So, Major, in Paris, the president again defended his son's meeting with a Russian lawyer and shifted the blame to the press for making a big deal of it. What did you make of the president's remarks in Paris?
That they're standard, that they're part and parcel of what the president has said about the scandal all along, even as revelations have proven things that the White House and the transition and even the campaign serially denied. That's point one. Point two, let's just take this out of any partisan prism, whether you're a Republican or a Democrat. Let's just ask the person the president has nominated to lead the FBI, Chris Wray. He was asked about a couple of things in general about this investigation in his confirmation hearing yesterday. And the president's own nominee to lead the FBI said, number one, the special counsel, Robert Mueller, and this entire investigation is not a witch hunt. The description the president has routinely applied to this. The president also said today it was a standard meeting that Donald Trump Jr. attended, as well as his then campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, and his son-in-law, now senior White House advisor, Jared Kushner, took in June of 2016 with a Russian lawyer with connections to the Kremlin and email trails suggesting she was working on behalf, or at least in coordination with, the Russian government. What did the president's own nominee to lead the FBI say about a meeting of that in general? Not this one specifically. I don't want to suggest that he was answering the question specifically about this meeting, but he said in general, any attempt by any foreign entity or foreign government, hostile or not, should first be referred to the FBI. So the president glossed over all of these uncomfortable facts, not partisan allegations, but statements from his own future leader of the FBI if, as expected, the Senate, by a wide margin, confirms Christopher Wray to replace James Comey, fired by the president as FBI director because the president said of the Russia investigation.
Major, it was interesting. We got a little bit of a peek behind the curtain. On the way to Paris, President Trump spoke to the press for an hour on Air Force One, which is not necessarily unusual. Those remarks at first were off the record. Again, that's something that's in keeping with past practices of other presidents. But then the White House took a step that is unusual and retroactively put some of those remarks by the president on the record. Explain what happened there, Major.
So it is not uncommon for presidents to come back to the press cabin. Just so you understand the geography of Air Force One, the president and all of his staff sit up front. Other lower level aides, Secret Service, sort of sit in the middle to the general back, and at the very back is the White House press corps. It is not uncommon for presidents to come back to that press cabin and shoot the breeze, almost always off the record, taking questions and offering assessments of things, but never for quotation, never even for background attribution to a senior administration official. That's what the ground rules were for this encounter. And then today, the president encountered today's print pool reporter, who happened to be Maggie Haberman of the New York Times. The president asked Maggie Haberman, "Why didn't you write what I said?" thinking it was on the record. Well, Maggie Haberman said, "Mr. President, the ground rules were off the record." Then the White House press shop said, "Oh my gosh, the president wants us on the record. We better put some of it on the record." So it did place some of the president's remarks on the record. Let me briefly describe some of those that were most important. The president talked about possibly placing tariffs on steel imports, China, other nations. That declaration, placed on the record by the White House, moved financial markets late this afternoon. The president also said he's very serious about not only building the border wall, that's not news, but having solar panels on it and having large holes in it, not holes that you can walk through, but holes that you can see through. So you can watch what potential drug smugglers might be doing on the other side of that wall. That caught a lot of people's attention. He also said he was going to invite, at some point in the future, Russian President Vladimir Putin, not just to America, but to the White House. Not now. The president said it's politically too hot to do so, but to rule it out for the entire first term of his presidency would be, in his words, stupid. The other thing the president said, existing sanctions on Russia over election meddling and Ukraine are not going to be lifted. The president considers them a bargaining chip with Russia and will use them as such. Lastly, Elaine, the president said, as regards North Korea and its pursuit of ballistic missile technology and nuclear weapons that can be delivered by that technology, the biggest point of leverage America has is trade with China, and the president will continue to pressure China on the trade front to apply more pressure to North Korea.
Major, I want to go back to your reporting about some of the fallout from that June 2016 meeting at Trump Tower. You have said that some have described it as a Category 5 hurricane of all the Russia-related stories to come out. I wonder, is this particular one the most damaging so far?
It is so far because it places an entire series of denials in a place where those denials, meaning denials of significant people within the Trump campaign meeting with Russians, those have all been denied for months and months and months in the category of no longer defensible and no longer useful. You can't deny that significant players within the Trump orbit met with a Russian, and the reason for that meeting was to obtain information potentially damaging to Hillary Clinton. And you also can't deny that that information promised, though not delivered, was at least in some way connected to intentions of the Russian government. That obliterates months and months of denials that the idea of collusion, cooperation, some effort to engage the Russians in a politically hostile way to Hillary Clinton are foolish and foolhardy and ridiculous. You can't say that anymore, and this White House knows that. What it can say, and what lawyers around this say, well, it wasn't illegal. It might not even been unethical. And the president said today it was a standard meeting. I remind our viewers of what his own nominee to the FBI has said about that, disagreeing publicly with the president's own assessment.
All right, Major Garrett at the White House for us. Major, thanks very much.
Sure.